Hello everyone, I'm Leroy Harris, Programming Librarian here at the New Ulm Public Library, and I'm very happy to welcome you back to our second annual Stories for the Season. This year we've done a great collaboration together with the State Street Theater, NUCAT, and we're very excited to have the Brown County Historical Society joining us this year to provide us with our reading material. All of the readings that you'll be hearing come from the Brown County Historical Archives. And so they'll include letters, personal remembrances, newspaper clippings, as well as some fun recipes. We hope you enjoy these stories for the season.
Welcome back to Stories for the Season. My name is Michael Kester, and I will be reading two selections today. The first is called Celebrating Christmas the German Way. This piece comes to us by Ruth Reichman, so thank you, Ruth. In German households, food and the eating of it is a family affair. Meals have followed, and to a degree still do on special occasions, a precise ritual and age-old traditions. The German housewife shows her love for her family with the meals she puts on the table. The family returns her love by eating what is placed before them. But criticism of the meal is taken as criticism of the person who prepared it and the one who provided the means to supply it. Each of the yearly recurring holidays and celebrations comes with its own locally conditioned tastes and smells. Depending on ethnic tradition and family background, Christmas may have come with the smell of baked apples, green branches, and red and white candles, with the sound of church bells or jingle bells. Weeks before the feast days, there may begin elaborate preparations. In the past, we have involved a great amount of cooking special meats and baking of the breads, fancy cakes, baked apples, and special cookies. For instance, Zimstern, which is cinnamon stars, Makronen, or macaroons, Liebkuchen, Stollen, Spritz cookies, also known as Spritzgebackens, and butter cookies, also known as Buttergebackens. The Danes, like many Germans, served goose with red cabbage and baked apples. Christmas Eve, or Heiliger Abend, used to be a fast day, and therefore special foods such as donuts, Schmalkalden, or Apfelstrudel was served. The meal served after the Christmas would then consist of sausages and sauerkraut bread in Kleinsenbrot, or otherwise known as fruitcake. A later custom was to eat fish, a Christmas carp prepared in many different ways, or a herring salad. For Christmas Day, there was liver dumpling soup, followed by a bratwurst. After the meal, sweets were served in the middle of the late century. In the middle of the late century, Wiener Schnitzel became a favorite. In the area of the south of the Danube, goose, duck, pollard, or turkey became fashionable. Now, Christmas Eve at the Reichmans is celebrated with traditional foods. Before church, there is herring salad, and after church, there will be Stollen, one of the many fruitcake variations, or Liebkuchen, especially ordered from Otto Schmidt in Nuremberg. It will be served with hot mulled cider or Glühwein, especially prepared by Ebert Reichman. I will give you the recipe for Glühwein. It literally means glow wine. Perhaps that is how you feel after you drink a much. Use cheap red wine. No use in wasting a fancy bottle of wine for this. 1 part cheap red wine and 1 part water. Honey, generous to sweeten. Cloves, go easy or just to taste. Cinnamon, just a little. Lemon slices, about 1 good-sized slice per gallon or 2. Abe Reichman says cook slowly, do not boil. Now, cocktails with hors d'oeuvres and dips are not a German tradition. When you are invited for a meal to a German home, it will be a special dining occasion, and you are expected to be on time for the meal will be ready and waiting. As soon as you arrive, you will be ushered into the dining room, and there you will sit for hours and hours and eat and drink and have a good time. The Christmas tree is part of the tradition of Rauhnacht, or the 12 Nights of Christmas. In the German-speaking countries, it is put up on Christmas Eve and taken down after New Year's or on January 6th, known as the 12th night. January 6th is also known as Three Kings. On that evening, carolers, 3 of them dressed as the 3 kings or the Magi, stroll from house to house. As part of the tradition of taking down the tree is the Plündern, or the raid of the tree, anxiously awaited by all the children. In some areas, the trees will be burnt in a big bonfire. January 7 ushers in the pre-Lenten Fasching or carnival season. Winter in the northern countries was harsh. as the early Germans observed the gradual dying of nature in the fall, when it turned colder and plants and leaves of trees began to change color, finally shriveled up and fell into the ground, followed by the cold of winter with ice and snow. Or they blamed evil spirits for the killing. Only a few trees stayed alive, the evergreens. They became a symbol of immortality. Good spirits and the magic power of the evergreen were believed to resist the life-threatening powers of darkness and cold. They believed in the special powers of these trees wherever they were. Evil spirits could not go, so they brought the greenie into their homes. The decorated tree was originally a pagan tradition in Germany's Upper Rhine region. A decorated holly tree was brought into the house and even placed in the village square. We know this because the 14th century Alsace laws were written which forbade farmers to cut down trees for Christmas uses. Now, families eventually brought decorated trees into their homes, adding to them apples, paper roses, and wafers, especially like stars, angels, and hearts, flowers, and bells. Tree decorations were mostly symbols of the newborn Christ. The star first recalled the first Christmas night. The gift-giving custom began when little items were hung on the tree, like tin cutouts, dolls, books, gilded nuts, fiddles and drums, work boxes, needle cases, pen wipes, ribbon, lace, and paper chains. All of this is mentioned in early reports of the southern part of Germany, and especially from Alsace. Candles replaced the bonfires as a symbol for the returning sun. The imitative magic of the illuminated Christmas tree, as did the bonfires, was to assure a steady supply of light and heat from the sun, and it has had a second aim in the purification or destruction of the forces of evil. In the Christian tradition, candles represented Christ as the light of the world. An early version of a tree with candles was the Lichtstock, a wooden pyramid trimmed with green sprigs and candles. Conifers, by virtue of their shape, also partake of the symbolism of the pyramid. The connection between the Christmas tree and lights came about the 18th century, most likely in the Alsmanic area of southwestern Germany. Legend has it is that Martin Luther introduced the tree lighted with candles to create the image of the starry sky from which Christ emerged. But there is no documentation of lights on the tree until about the 18th century. The poet Goethe first saw a Christmas tree in 1765 in Leipzig. The earliest known Christmas celebration mentioned in German literature is the description of a Christmas celebration with a candlelight tree in Goethe's best-selling novel Die Leiden des jungen Werther, also known as The Sorrows of Young Werther, of 1774. It may have helped spread the custom. The early Christmas tree stood on a table. The German trees are silver fir and balsam, with their branches spaced far enough apart and in such a way that the candles can place on them without serious danger of fire. Of the German Christmas songs which have become part of American traditions, the best known, besides Silent Night, is O Tannenbaum, O Christmas Tree. Well, thank you, Ruth, for that lovely story. My last story today will include the singing of Stille Nacht, the German hymn Silent Night. This one is entitled Christmas in Germany by Martha Riggle. Once upon a time, there was a Santa Claus who did not live in department stores and did not have his picture taken with children old enough not to believe in him anymore. Santa Claus, as I knew him, was usually played by a neighbor. There was always a chance that he would present us with a switch instead of goodies, and he was said to carry off bad children in his sack. But we loved him anyway, because deep down in our hearts, we knew that we would come out a winner. Actually, German children have no Santa Claus, as American children know him. On Christmas, German boys and girls are visited by a Weihnachtsmann or a Christkind, depending on the part of Germany in which they live. The German Santa Claus, or St. Nicholas as we call him, comes already on the 4th of December. Children will shine their shoes and put them in the hallway. In the middle of the night, St. Nicholas will then fill the shoes according to behavior. Good children receiving sweets, and the bad ones receiving a switch. I have never experienced either. I always found a switch in my shoe, but tied to the branches were little favors and goodies. I guess I was just average. We always had a real tree. My father took charge of the trimming, and he would not have it any other way. It was a Tannenbaum, adorned with real candles. He took great pride in the uniformity of his tree. He would cut away branches on one side, only to attach them again in bare places. He carefully placed the ornaments so that no two ornaments of the same color were hung close together. He would then place fluff cotton strategically on the branches to look like real snow. Finally, my mother would attach cookies and sweet rings, but most important, we children were not allowed to see the tree until Bescherung, which is our gift-giving time. The German living room is much like the American parlor. It is separate and has a door dividing it from the rest of the house. Our living room was off limits to us children weeks before Christmas. Fortunately, the door had a big keyhole. More often than once, I tried to peek through it, only to find that the keyhole was stuffed with paper. Yes, Christmas has changed since I was a child. But the one remaining tradition that stays to this day is the singing of Christmas hymns. I will sing for you now one of my favorite hymns, Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht, alles schläft, einsam wacht, nur das traute heilige Paar. O der Knabe im lockigem Haar, schlaf in himmlischer Ruh, schlaf in himmlischer Ruh. Danke and Merry Christmas.